Hey guys, how y'all doing out there? It's time for another tutorial from Pinnacle Studio Pro. Now, before I get into the tutorial on the muzzle flash effect, I want to remind you about something. It's the first freaking Saturday of the month, so that means it's contest time. So, our prize for this time is a 3-month subscription to StudioBacklot.tv, baby. So, I need you to stay tuned, watch this tutorial, find out how it's done, and then get the details on how you can win that free 3-month subscription to StudioBacklot.tv. Let's get into it. Hey man, you messing up my house.
How did you do that?
Whoa! Holy cow!
Oh boy.
All you have to do is ask.
Alright people, you saw it, you believe it, now it's time for you to achieve it. I'm going to show you how to get it done. Alright, I got my footage down in the timeline of all the moves that I needed to make for this video. Now the first thing I need to do is I need to take my playhead and I need to move it to a position right when the individual gun recoils. Now, this is a blowback gun, which means that the CO2 cartridge, this is the BB gun, but it looks really realistic with the blowback recoil. If you could get a gun like this, if you got the money to do it because it helps you pull off the effect. All right, so as you can see right here, if I go forward, I'm stepping frames through. You can see that was where the recoil happened. All right, there's the recoil. And this is the frame right before it, so I'm going to put a timeline marker here. All right, because this is where I want to start making things happen. Now I'm going to move forward and I'm going to try to get right before the other recoil. See the recoil happen again there. So I'm going to step back a frame and that's good. I'm going to place another timeline marker here. These are the positions where I want everything to happen. This is where I want to add my muzzle flashes. This is where I want to add my light effects, everything. So I'm going to click on the first little timeline marker here. I'm going to right click on the footage and I'm going to go to Open Effects Editor. First place I'm going to go is to add-ons. I'm going to go to Red Giant Motion Graphics Toolkit. And I'm going to go to No Light Factory. Now for this part, I want to add a little light to the gun effect. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to choose Orange Spike. Now at this position where I actually went into the effects editor, this is where I know that first frame I want is located at. So right now I'm going to go ahead and turn on keyframes. All right, so for this first keyframe, I'm going to leave everything like it is real quick. I'm going to step back 2 frames. Matter of fact, let's go here. I'm going to step back 2 frames. And I'm going to add a keyframe here. Now on this keyframe, I'm going to change my parameters. I'm going to change my brightness to 0. I'm going to change my scale to 0.1. And I'm going to, actually let's bring this up a little bit so I can see the little light there. And I already know the position where I want the light to be at. But you are going to need to move it to the position that is right over the barrel of the gun, which is where I put the light at right now. So right now I'm going to go ahead and move the brightness back down to 0. All right, now I'm going to step to the next keyframe that I made by using the next keyframe button. And I'm going to turn my brightness up to 150. I'm going to move my scale back down to 0.1. And I'm going to put these right at the same position, right over the barrel of the gun. What this does, it just helps to make it look like light is coming out of it. It just helps to sell the effect a little bit more. So I'm going to move forward two more frames using the step forward button. I'm going to add another keyframe here. And at this position, I'm going to move the brightness down to 0. What this does is it makes the light come out right at the correct point where you pull the trigger and the recoil happens. And then, we got another recoil here, right? So we got to do this one. And what you could do, and what I'm going to do real quick, just to show you a little trick. Since I already have timeline markers where these are happening at, I'm going to click OK. Just to show you a quick little trick. And I'm going to go to this other timeline marker that I made. And then I'm going to right click, go back into Effects Editor. And I'm just going to go to Controls again. And right now, I know that my playhead is right at that next position. So I know it's at the perfect spot. So I'm going to add a keyframe here. I'm going to step back 2 frames. And add another keyframe. I'm going to step forward to the middle keyframe. And I'm going to move forward 2 frames. And I'm going to add another keyframe. Then I'm going to go to that back 1 keyframe to that middle one, because all of these keyframes that I just did are actually showing no light. But now I want to go to the middle one, and I'm going to turn the brightness up to 150 again. And what you'll see now is that both times that the individual pulls the trigger, let me move this down to 0 real quick. So you may need to fix that first keyframe there. Now, when I play it, you'll see that when the individual pulls the trigger, there'll be some light. There you go. So that's beautiful. I want that just like that. It's beautiful. All right, so I'm going to move forward to that frame where the first light is at. And the reason why I'm doing that is because when I start the next effect, I want to do the same thing. I want to add light right where those muzzle flashes are going to go off. So for this one, I'm going to go to color. I'm going to go to base color correction. And I'm going to change this to no preset. And the only thing I want to do is change the brightness on this. So where I'm at right now, I'm going to go ahead and enable keyframes. And for this frame where I'm at, I want to go ahead and change the brightness to 25. That will add some light to the environment so that when you're shooting and you're pulling the trigger, the environment gets lit up as well. So what I want to do now is step back 2 frames and change the brightness to 0. I want to step forward to the next frame, and then I want to step forward 2 frames and change the brightness to 0 again. Now, I could go ahead and click OK and then find the next recoil and all of that good stuff, but I'm just going to pull my playhead forward to the next recoil. And you could do this on the first one as well, or you could just click OK and go back. It's all how you want to do it. So there's the recoil. All right, so the frame right before the recoil, I'm going to go ahead and add a keyframe here. I'm going to step back 2 frames. And the reason why I'm stepping back 2 frames first is because it's going to create a frame with the 0 brightness there. All right. And that's what I want. So I'm going to step to the next keyframe. Then I'm going to step forward 2 frames. And I'm going to create another keyframe. So I have 0 brightness on all 3 of these. So I'm going to step back to the keyframe I created that's in the middle. And I'm going to turn my brightness up to 25. All right, so now my environment is lit up and I got some light on the front of the muzzle. So I'll hit play and you'll get a look at this. So you see there's light on the environment and you see light coming out of the muzzle. All right, so that's good. I'm going to click OK. And now we want to go ahead and add our muzzle flashes. Now, the muzzle flashes that I added are actually from Action Essentials. Now, these files will not work in Pinnacle Studio 16 unless you convert them using a file converter or using QuickTime Pro. I have a video on it. It's called Converting Action Essentials Files. Watch that, and then you'll learn how to convert them so you can use them in the program. We already have our timeline marker set up, so I'm going to drag the muzzle flash that I want to use down into the timeline and bring it to the first marker. And then you can bring one to the second marker as well. It depends on how you're doing it. Action Essentials has a lot of gunshots. It has a lot of automatic weapon fire, all kind of good stuff. So now that I have these set up where I need them, I need to make some adjustments to them. So I'm going to right click on this muzzle flash here on the bottom. And I'm going to go to Open Effects Editor. And we're going to start blasting on some people. Now, once again, we know that the timeline marker is where it should be. Well, it really isn't where it should be right now. It actually needs to be at the beginning. We need to move our playhead to the beginning so we can see the muzzle flash. All right, first thing we need to do is go to Keyers. And then we're going to go to Luma Keyer. Now, when you first do it, the default setting is not going to help you out at all. So you need to change your settings so that you can see everything. And plus, you need to go ahead and change this from solo to show media and tracks below so that you can see everything that's behind it. All right. So now, as you can tell, it didn't really do what I wanted it to do. That does not look like a good muzzle flash. So I need to change my settings. Now, depending on the flash that you use, you might have different settings than me. It is what it is. I'm just going to move the Luma Center all the way up. And that looks great to me. So I'm going to leave it like that. Now I need to position my muzzle flash right over the muzzle. So I'm going to go to 2D, 3D. And I'm going to go to 3D Editor CPU. The reason why I'm using this one is so that I can change some things on a different axes so that if I need to turn it to match up how I'm, going, because I'm not automatically like directly sideways. Let's change this from default to no preset. All right, you see that this is just going sideways, but I'm kind of like at an angle, so I need to change that up a little bit. So I'm going to use position. And I'm going to position this bad boy where I want it to be. Let's do size first so we can tell the size that we want. Now, when you do the size of your muzzle flash, you want it to be like as big as the gun that you're using or even a little bit bigger than that. That way it looks realistic because muzzle flashes are big. They're not small. And don't make it too big because it'll look crazy. All right, so I changed my size up. Now I want to change the position here. So, as a matter of fact, let's change the rotation first to make sure we get the right look on this bad boy. So, I want to change the Y rotation because what the Y rotation does, if you see if I move this, it's moving it in space, turning it around. So, I need to move it like an angle, kind of like how I am. So, this is around a 40-degree angle. So, I'm going to change this like that. And I think that's pretty good so far. We'll see when I move it into position. And so, now I need to move it into position. So I need to change the X and the Y on this one. And of course, this will all depend on your muzzle flash and all that stuff. All right, so that looks good where it's at, right there sitting on top of the muzzle. And so far, so good. So if we play this back, You see a little quick muzzle flare there, or muzzle flash. Can't really tell too much right now. So what I'm gonna do next is, because, well, let's click OK and give you a look at it real quick before I do the next step. I want you to see what it looks like so far. All right, so the first muzzle flash you're gonna see is the one that's almost complete, and then you're gonna see the other one above it with nothing. So don't worry about the second one, okay? You saw that. Pretty nice looking muzzle flash so far. All right, but I'm not done. Y'all know how I do. I gotta have a little bit of extra on this. So I'm gonna right click on it and go back to the effects editor where I was. And I want to add one more thing to this. Let's go ahead and change it from solo to show media and tracks below. All right, I want to add one more thing to this to help with the realism of it. You don't have to do this next part. You can if you want to. It's really up to you. It's basically done. I want to go ahead and add a little bit of love to it. So I'm going to go to camera. I'm going to go to Radial Blur. And for the settings, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change it from spin to zoom. And I'm going to click OK. And I'm done with that. Now, because I have two muzzle flashes, I want to go ahead and put the same exact parameters from here to here. So I'm going to spread out my timeline a little bit. I'm going to right click on this pink line for the effects. Go to effect. Go to copy all. I'm going to right click on this muzzle flash above it. I'm going to click paste. Now let's go ahead and bring this timeline back down and let's take a look at it real quick. I love it. Looks fan-freaking-tastic. Now, like I said, it's up to you what you want to do with the Radial Blur. Put it on, take it off. It's all gravy. It's all up to you. Now, I also did a little bullet hit on the wall, and I also did a little blood and stuff. I'm not going to show you how to do all of that because it would take forever because there's a lot of keyframing involved. But I'll show you my settings so you can see kind of like what I did. So the first thing I want to go to is the hole that I made in the wall. So I'm going to right click on that, go to open effects editor and show you my settings on that. Let's go ahead and click on solo, change that to media and tracks below. Now, the first thing I did on this one is I did the Luma Keyer. So you can see my settings here. I put the Luma center, left it at 50 and moved my radius up. All right. And then I had to put it into position. And this one I used 2D Editor Advanced instead of 3D because I didn't have to turn it. So all I really did was change the size, made it smaller, and I put it in the position where I wanted it to be on the wall. And then I use tint to change the color to match my wall. And that's going to be settings that are going to be really up to you, how you're going to change those settings to make it match your environment. All right, so that's the hole in the wall. Now, next thing I did was I had a little dirt hit actually come out of the wall as well. So let's see here. So here's the dirt. I'm going to go to Open Effects Editor to show you that. All right, so for the dirt, once again, let's go ahead and go to Solo. And let's show the media and tracks below. Now for the dirt, I went ahead and did the Luma Keyer first. On this one, same thing. Just Luma Center. That's it. Then I went to 2D Editor Advanced. You guys know how to get there. I showed you several times. Once again, position and size for that. Change it, bring it down to size, and put it right over the center of this hole so that the dirt is coming out and then the hole is created from that position. And then I just added a radial blur. And on this one, instead of doing zoom, I left it at spin. All right, so then we got our blood. All right, two things for the blood. First thing for the blood, I did a flesh wound. Now, the flesh wound, the bullet hole, the dirt hit, and the blood all came from the Action Essentials. All right, so let's right-click on this flesh wound and go to Open Effects Editor so I can show you my settings on that one. First thing I did was I went to the Luma Keyer. Let me show you the tracks below again. So on the Luma Center, I just went down on the Luma Center. So again, I went to a position where right where the black disappeared and it was still red. Make sure you're very careful with that. You got to be real precise when you move that. I mean, if you need to, you can just click on that till that becomes orange, and you can move your mouse wheel and scroll it. And it should be able to like move 1 frame or 2 frames at a time or something like that. It moves really slow depending on how you do it. All right. That's a good way to kind of move it slowly. All right. So after I did that, I went to 3D Editor CPU. And for this one, I did position and size and a little bit of rotation on that as well to get it right. So those are the settings I use for that. Put it into position and make it small enough. And then I added a radial blur, and on this one I did zoom as my type. All right. And last but not least, we got our blood. So our blood, we did basically just the same thing with the blood. Only thing is that we made sure that we put it on top of the flesh wound. Now, one thing that we must remember, all right, same settings. We got the Luma Center, Luma Keyer, all the same. But the one thing in the Radial Blur, the one thing that you must remember is that you have to keyframe the blood and the wound to follow the individual's head as he goes down and keep the wound in the same place. As you can see, if I move through to each one of these keyframes that I created down here on this line, you'll see that the position changes when I go to each frame. So see how that changed. If I move to the next keyframe, you see the Y position changed to 3. Go to the next one. So you can tell that everything changed as we went along. So you're going to have to do that, all right, to keep the wound and the blood in the correct place. All right, people. That's it. The muzzle flash effect in Pinnacle Studio 16 Ultimate.
Alright people, you saw the muzzle flash effect. You saw how we get down. Doing it big. Pinnacle Studio 16 Ultimate. Contest rule time. Alright. 3 simple rules. Subscribe to this channel. If you're not subscribed to this channel, you can't win. Don't even try. I'll be checking to see if you're subscribed or not. I don't play. So don't play with me because I don't play. Rule number 2. You gotta like this video. Like it, alright? Click the thumb that's pointed in the upward direction. You know the rest. Rule number 3. Comment on this video. Leave a comment on what you think you're going to get the most use out of from the StudioBacklot.tv website. They've got discounts. They've got stock footage. They've got tutorials. So, go over there. Let me know what you think you're going to get the most use out of by leaving a comment. 3 simple rules. Subscribe, like, comment. You're in there for the drawing for the next contest. Winner will be announced on the next first Saturday of the month video. Boom. We in there. We out of here. Peace.
Thank you.